Welcome into your PTN Extra. Hayden Herrera taking the place of Evan Kamiko this week, joined by Mike Irwin. Mike, I hope I can just live up to the legend that Evan is each and every week. I'll try my best. We got a lot to get to this week. Thanksgiving almost here, but we're talking some Hogs. We'll start off with Tuesday night's basketball game at Bud Walton Arena. If you thought it was an uncomfortable finish against Samford just a few nights ago, Nelly, an 84-83 win. Arkansas squeaks by Winthrop. They needed a 6-0 run late to get the win, 84-83, like I said. Mike, just did you think we would see another one of these close ones after last Friday night?
I didn't know how close it would be, but after now in this second year under Cal, if fans haven't figured this out yet, I'll just say it. He doesn't schedule these rent-a-win games that we're kind of used to under other coaches here. We've always seen some December games that were pretty much pushover opponents. And Cal has the ability to find these teams like Samford and Winthrop that are actually a lot better than fans realize. The players, he warns them that they're good, although one of the things that came up in this post-game interview was, or post-game press conference, was that Winthrop has the 19th best fast break offense in the country, and the players said they didn't know that. So maybe he didn't tell them about that. I think he was mainly warning them about their three-point shooting. It turned out that wasn't all they did, but when you hit 15 threes on the road, I think a lot of teams would lose in a situation like that. I also think that one of the things that's contributing to these issues is when you go into a place like Bud Walton Arena playing a team like Arkansas, it's supposed to be a tough environment in the building. It's not. When you've got more than half the seats empty, it's not like when Arkansas went to Michigan State and faced this raucous crowd with students everywhere. That atmosphere was dead in there for most of the game. And, you know, fans are making excuses. They're talking about Yurachek's pushed all the rabid fans back and put all these rich people, and supposedly they don't cheer, they don't show up when they don't want to, if it's not a big game, there's too many corporate tickets. You can make all these excuses in the world, but I'm just going to tell you, Arkansas is not a basketball school. If you call this a basketball school, you're wrong, because at basketball schools, they show up, they fill the arena, and they're not doing that. And everybody seems to think that's no issue. And I will admit, these games in November or December don't determine what you do in conference play. They don't have much to do with the NCAA tournament. But it is a time when your players are trying to learn how to do things. And that's what Cal does. He schedules opponents that he thinks will test his team's ability to react to certain situations. And he got that, I think, because they were down by 5 points with a minute to go. And I said to myself, they're dead. Yeah. Because they had no momentum. They weren't scoring. Guys were missing shots. Acuff was not playing a good game, which is rare for him. And you just felt like they're not rebounding. They had a couple of steals and didn't score off of them, and you're thinking, they're just dead. And then all of a sudden, in the last minute, they made up that 5-point deficit and took the lead. And so what I would say is, that is a preview of what may happen to you in the NCAA tournament. There's a reason why we get all these 15 and 14 seeds pulling off upsets, because there are teams like Winthrop that people aren't ready for, and then all of a sudden you get in a game and they're hitting all these threes and they're a mature team. Some of those guys have been at 4 different schools in 4 years, so they've been around the block. You're not going to intimidate teams like that. You don't have rookies out there. Arkansas's played 3 true freshmen in the game. You don't have that with them. And so I think, again, it's kind of a little preview. I think that the Samford game was a preview of what the Michigan State game was a preview of what can happen to you on the road. Right. Going to a place like Tennessee, going to a place like Ole Miss, going to a place like Alabama. They have to go to all these places those places. So it shows them, hey, this is how much harder it is to win. And Arkansas, hits a 3 that goes into overtime. So they played well there. This game they didn't play that well, and these type games are no-win situations, and I'll tell you why. The opponent is coming in here. It's the biggest game of the year for them, maybe the biggest game in 3 or 4 years, because they're getting a chance to play a team like Arkansas and this legendary Bud Walton. And then they come in and they look around and go, whoa, okay, and there's not many fans. Hey, this is not tough. And then you're right there with them, and you're getting fired up. What is Arkansas's approach in a game like this? They're looking ahead to the Duke game. That's a game for them. That gets them up. This is work. This is a job. Oh, yeah, we got to play this guy. We got to play, and they got another game coming up. Jackson State, like, we got to play these guys. Okay, but it's work. It's not, wow, we got to go. So there are two different scenarios out there on the court. One team's fired up, excited. The other team's just going, okay, we got to win this game. Those are just tough situations. And the fact that they won, I think, is what he wanted to do.
Does that give you any cause for concern for Friday, taking on a Jackson State team?
Well, I don't think so, because I think after 2 of these, they should have it down
Third
now
time's a charm.
and realize, hey, you got to come out here ready to play. Plus, I think they play again tonight. Jackson State plays again tonight, so they're going to have a quick turnaround. So maybe they'll be a little bit fatigued. I'm not sure. But again, I don't see this so much as a difficulty. I see this as a thing Cal does to get this team ready or to expose certain problems that they can work on. Now, I do think one of the things that he got upset about, I'm doing a story on this for our 10 o'clock sports, he was upset with what happened at the end of the game.
Yeah.
When and I don't like the way the officials ruled on this, because Nick Pringle had just basically put Arkansas in front with 11 seconds to go, and I think the guy that was next to him did this on purpose. He hooked his neck with his arm and literally slung him to the floor.
Yeah.
All Pringle did was get up and kind of shove. There's no comparison between those two things, and yet he got a technical too. But what upset Cal was all these people that ran out on the floor.
Right.
If everyone from Winthrop had stayed on the bench and Arkansas had the guys out on the floor, then all of a sudden they're shooting, they get the ball back, they're shooting, and you lose this game. And that's what he was concerned about. We got to know the rules. You know, Pringle apologized, said he lost his composure. Yes, what he should have done is just thought to himself, okay, that guy just screwed them over, because it should have been a flagrant one anyway, and he should have been ejected, and Arkansas shoots and gets the ball back. But that's not the way it happened. So again, there were a lot of things, a lot of lessons learned.
Yeah.
But again, when you can do that and still win the game, nobody's going to worry about this 2 or 3 games from now. You'll be on to other things, I promise you, as fans. And what Cal's trying to do is get this team ready for bigger and better things.
Yeah, that near scuffle, maybe the most physicality that was shown on the court. Cal kind of mentioned in the postgame about the physicality, and it's something that you and Evan talked about last week, something that still needs to be shown on this team.
Yeah, but I thought, now, Ewan still, he didn't do much in this game, but they didn't play him a whole lot either. And he did get I think he scored at least 2 points, had some rebounds. Yeah. But I thought Pringle played much better in this game. I thought he was physical. There were 2 or 3 times when he might have been out of position, but he scored the winning basket, you know. He was a factor in this, and so was Brazil. Brazil forces the turnover that leads to that. And he was all over the place. They were having to rest him because he was so active. That's so much better than having him not do much at all, which is what he did, you know, in the other game. So, again, you had more of an inside presence in this game, and that was the concern with Samford, is the lack of effort in scoring inside. Well, they got scoring inside from 2 of those guys, and they got rebounding. You just got to get the third guy involved. They really, all 3 of them are needed.
Yeah, Nick Pringle had 13 points, 7 rebounds, so yeah, an improvement. Malik Thomas leading the way for the Hogs, 26 points off the bench. Arkansas back at it on Friday against Jackson State. We're going to take a quick break, shift from basketball to football. Big-time rivalry up on Saturday in Austin. We'll talk about that coming up on Big PTN Extra. We're back on PTN Extra. Hayden Herrera alongside Mike Irwin. Mike, Trey and Evan will be headed to Austin, Texas this weekend for really a storied rivalry that goes back a long ways. Arkansas and Texas meeting on the gridiron. When that rivalry comes up, what's the first thing that comes to your mind as someone that's covered the Razorbacks all these years?
Well, in years past, and look, there was a break when Arkansas was in the SEC and Texas was still in the Big 12, and then we've obviously had them back for a couple of years, and Arkansas did beat them in a non-conference game in Sam Pittman's, I think it was 2021 season.
Yeah.
But here's the thing about that now. You don't have too many guys on this team that understand this rivalry, and Bobby Petrino said in his press conference earlier this week, he's going to have to sit down and try to explain it to them. Well, when you have to explain a rivalry to players because they've never experienced it, I don't know if it would. The win over Texas in 2021, it was here. Mm-hmm. You have the fans to remind the players by the way they're reacting in the stands how big it is. That's not going to happen down there. So I think they're going to have a hard time convincing these players that this game is any different from any of the others they've played. So that's issue number one down there. Issue number two is I don't like the way they match up with Texas. Arkansas's defense has done a better job of stopping the run lately. I even think their secondary is better. But the one thing they don't do well, they still do not pass rush very well. Mm-hmm. And that's the one thing that's caused Texas problems this year. Some people would be surprised to know they're the 11th best offense in the league because they were supposed to be one of the best. That is mainly because Arch Manning gets really flustered when you put pressure on him. I don't see Arkansas doing that to him. Maybe they will, but that's not what they do. So I think he'll probably have a pretty good game, and when he does, then the running game works better when the passing game works. And I think Arkansas is going to have a hard time with them because they don't match up very well with them. Then on the other side of the ball, the one thing Texas does well is this is the best defense that Arkansas has faced in the SEC play. You might argue that Notre Dame's defense is as good, but of all the teams that Arkansas has played in the SEC so far, this is the highest rated defense they've played. And that tells me that the thing Arkansas always tries to hang its hat on, which is his offense, they're going to have some problems. I just don't think they can score enough points to match Texas if Arch Manning gets this thing going. And then there's always what you have to worry about is turnovers. Yep. Now, the X factor in this game, and it is an X factor, is apparently we're going to see KJ Jackson some. I think you'll still probably see Taylon Green start, but when he starts having issues, then you're going to put the other guy in. Then we're going to find out, is this really a Taylon Green problem? With all the amazing things he does, he comes back the next possession and does something really dumb. Okay, so are you better off not doing that at all and going with this redshirt freshman quarterback? I'm not sure, but that's the X factor in this game.
There have been a percentage of fans that have wanted to see KJ Jackson, so yeah, they might get that chance in Austin this weekend. Texas dropped to number 17 in the CFP polls. You mentioned Arch Manning. Should we have known? There was so much hype for Arch at the beginning of the season, obviously with his last name and his pedigree. Should we have known that those expectations were too lofty for anybody?
I'm not sure. I mean, it's hard to say, but what it's turned out, he's got a lot of the same issues Taylon Green does. Mm-hmm. He looks really good if you don't put pressure on him. But if you don't give him enough time to throw, he's not one of these quarterbacks that's looking here, about to be sacked, and turns and immediately sees somebody open and gets it to him. There are quarterbacks that can do that, and he's not good at that. And so you're going to see two quarterbacks that struggle under pressure. I just think Texas has a much better pass rush than Arkansas does.
So Texas's win streak, it was snapped last week against Georgia. Is Arkansas catching the Longhorns at the right time, or can you even say that for a team like Arkansas?
I don't know. I mean, we're not down there. We don't know what the mentality is there.
Yeah.
I think there is a chance that their players will overlook Arkansas. They're going, come on, these guys are the worst team in the league. They're the bottom feeders. We'll beat them. And then you get into a situation we were talking about, earlier with the basketball team, where you can't convince your players. You can tell them all day long. And Steve Sarkisian did say this is a dangerous team.
Yeah.
Okay, is he going to make his players believe that? Even if they're sitting there nodding their head in a team meeting, that doesn't mean you're not just, your mind's drifting off into something else, because you're going, these guys are dead last in the league. They haven't won a conference game. they haven't beaten anybody, and they're going to beat us? Come on, it's not going to happen.
At last check, Texas 8.5-point favorites at home against Arkansas on Saturday. As I mentioned, Texas number 17 in the CFP polls. Wondering if you caught Hunter Yurachek as the CFP chair last night. He did the he's the chair now, so he does the interview with Reese Davis. A lot of folks in Miami not happy with Hunter and the CFP committee's logic placing Miami and Notre Dame. Wondering if you got a chance to check him out last night.
It just wasn't a good look. And it's not just Miami fans. If you go on the internet and read the reaction to what he said, because what he seemed to be saying is it's more important as to who you lost to and by how much than who you beat. And the cockeyed logic of that, except that to me, maybe that exposes something that I've said all along about this stupid committee. I hate this committee thing. Mike Leach did a whole thing one time about, hey, let's get a committee. And we'll put people on the committee, and we'll let the committee decide things because they must know more than we do. Yeah. And so he kind of gave you an inside look. If these guys, he'd just come out of a meeting, so if is that what they're in there debating, as to who had the most close losses, and they just ignore who the wins that you had and who you beat and all of that stuff? So it wasn't a good look. And Razorback fans, a lot of them aren't very happy with him right now anyway, so they jumped on. This is what we're dealing with. This guy doesn't even understand football.
We'll see him on our screens the next few Tuesdays until everything's settled out. But even with a lot, I mean, as it kind of the committee's logic doesn't seem to make sense. But sometimes a lot of this stuff just plays out once these teams go to battle.
Well, once you put it in there, it just is what it is. Yeah. This is one of the reasons everybody laughs at me when I'm favored 25 teams in the playoffs or whatever. Because I think the more teams you throw in there, you increase the chance of an upset. Everybody says, no, all those teams will all lose. If that were true, then the NCAA basketball tournament would always be predictable. And it's the most unpredictable of all postseason things because you get those 14 seeds that knock off a 3 seed or a 2. We've even seen a couple of 1 seeds knock off, and that never happened. But lately, there's a couple of 16 seeds have knocked off a 1 seed. And that happens because that's what you do. The more more teams you put into the tournament. So I'm favoring it, and I do agree with you that regardless of what the committee decides, once they put it in place, it's just spin the wheel because nobody knows what's going to happen. I promise you they don't.
Yeah, some people are saying this is not a great, not a lot of intriguing matchups. USC and Oregon, they'll probably cancel one another out for the playoff this week. So maybe not this week, but in the next few weeks, rivalry week next week, we'll see how this all plays out. All right, one more break here on PTN Extra. We'll talk some head coaching search because everybody is. We're back after this. Just a few minutes left here on PTN Extra. Hayden Herrera joined by Mike Irwin. Mike, the James Franklin saga is finally over. He's put pen to paper in Blacksburg, head coach of the Virginia Tech Hokies. Are you glad that we can finally X off a name on this head coaching search?
The only thing that I'm surprised is why he waited so long, because when you look at what a fit he thinks that is, how his family all along wanted that job. He's got I think a brother-in-law or a brother that lives in that area. He recruited that area. His youngest daughter has a medical condition that there are more specialists in that area to treat that condition. So there were all kinds of reasons why he should be there. Why did it take him so long? Because he could have been in place recruiting 3 weeks ago. Yeah. So I don't know what the answer to that is other than Jimmy Sexton is his agent. Maybe he let him have too much leeway and said, let's wait and see if we can get any other big giant offers. He didn't strike me as a guy that was looking strictly for money in that situation. But when you got Jimmy Sexton as your agent, I don't understand how you get an agent and he has total control of a job search situation. I don't understand that. He still works for you. Mm-hmm. You can still tell him, I don't care about getting an extra $2 million or whatever. This is a school I want to go to. I'm ending this now. So again, I don't understand why it took so long. The quicker he got to work and started recruiting at Virginia Tech, the better off his situation would be. And as far as I'm concerned, he waited 2 or 3 weeks too long.
Arkansas, a team that cannot wait too much longer once the regular season ends. Now that Franklin's name is off the table, I mean, how quickly after that Mizzou game next week does Arkansas need to have pen to paper for another
Well,
coach?
as quick as you can. And again, you get all these people, all this different stuff you're being told, and you don't know if it's right or not. I've been told all along that they would have an announcement next week, the week of the Missouri game, and that they had been waiting because they didn't want to affect the team when there were a lot of games still left. But when the Texas game's over, then it's just one more game you can go ahead and do. I don't know if that's true. If you look at some of the people that are supposedly they're looking at, there's supposedly been some pretty good discussions with Pat Fitzgerald of Northwestern, and fans are going, what in the heck is that? This guy, what did he do? And then he got fired, and they're not sure why he got fired. Well, he got fired because he was implicated by the administration there in a hazing scandal where freshmen said, hey, these, I don't know what they were doing to them, whether it was a fraternity, like a fraternity thing where they were whacking them with a paddle or what they were doing to them. But apparently some of these guys just got enough of it and went to the administration. And he said, they didn't ever come to me. If I knew about it, I would have dealt with it. Well, it went on. He immediately filed a suit when he was fired for cause, like this is your fault, because he said it wasn't, and he challenged him in court, and he just won. So he got a lot of money, so you don't have to pay him a lot of money because he already has it, and he doesn't have to get it back. I mean, what you pay him doesn't come, it's not a buyout. So there are people that think that's attractive to Arkansas, that he might, and then I think what I've heard is they just like his history, which is he is a no-nonsense, defensive-oriented coach that really works his players hard, and they're fundamentally sound. They were just overwhelmed playing in the Big Ten without the resources that he would have better resources here. It's still going to be a difficult situation. The thing you have to worry about is the culture difference. I mean, he's never worked anywhere close to where this would be. He's never recruited anywhere close to this would be. So is that a problem? It could be. But here's the thing, you never know how that works. Who would have thought that a guy from Ireland would adapt and adjust to the culture in Northwest Arkansas? But John McDonald came here and stayed here the rest of his life. Who would have thought that a guy that grew up in the barrios of El Paso would come to Northwest Arkansas and live here for the rest of his life? I mean, Frank Broyles from Georgia. He'd had at least just one head coaching job before he came here, and that was at Missouri, and he barely had a winning record. But he came here and was the head coach for 19 years, and in the 1960s, Arkansas won a national championship and came within a few points of winning 2 more, and then he became the best AD this school has ever had. Well, who knew that was going to happen? Who knew that? What was there about the culture in Georgia that made him? He just got here and liked it. He liked Arkansas fans from the beginning. And most people that I talk to, when they talk about all these people over at the U of A, coaches, and there's a whole long line of coaches that came here, built their career, got better here, and then they didn't use the job as a stepping stone. They didn't go somewhere else. They just stayed. Why did they stay? Every one of them would tell you they liked Arkansas fans. So if he would come down here and become that guy, maybe that's something that could happen and have, like Signetti 2 years ago, did anybody believe he would be doing what he's doing? Oh. So that kind of and I'm not saying just him, but that kind of a thinking of bringing somebody in that the fans would probably go, yeah, what are you doing? It might be the best thing. But you could also make an argument that Razorback fans aren't the same as they used to be. They're more jaded. That was their parents and their grandparents that did all. Now Arkansas fans do things like they don't show up at basketball games because they don't like the opponent. Right. And because they've reached a point, so many of them are saying, I'm so tired of this stuff in football, I don't even get mad anymore. So I'm just not going to go to games anymore. So you could bring somebody like that in here, but if he looks at the fan base and he doesn't see what all those other coaches saw, maybe he doesn't stay here very long. There's just so much right now that's hard to gauge. And then you've got the traditional kind of guys that we've heard about all along, the group of 5 coaches, really all from the American Athletic Conference, the AAC. You know, you got Golish from South Florida, you got Sumlin from Tulane, you got Morris from North Texas State. The problem with Golish and Morris both is either one of them may get into a playoff situation. If you wanted them, how much longer are you going to have to wait? That would not be at the end of the season. That would be a week after the end of the season. It might be a second week in December before you could hire them. So are they willing to wait that long for somebody like that? Because you don't have much time to get in recruits, get your staff built, dealing with all this stuff. You got signing date coming up in January. You got this portal date. I wouldn't want to be whoever's having to make this decision, because if they get it wrong, the program itself is going to be in deep trouble. I'm telling you, this is the most important hire that's been made, in my opinion, since I don't know when, since I've been here. If they get this wrong, it could really go bad for the entire athletic department.
Yeah, it'll be a monumental next few days, weeks for the Arkansas program. And who knows, probably by this time next week on Pig Trail PTN Extra, we'll still be talking about candidates, but
I hope not, but
who knows?
I'd love to see this end.
Yeah, I think we all would. All right. Well, you're going to see this episode end. For Mike Irwin, I'm Hayden Herrera. Thanks for watching PTN Extra. We'll see you next week.